I'll just share my presentation. Okay, you're able to see the presentation clearly, Mitra?
Yes, I can see the presentation.
Okay, folks, let me get started. So I think in terms of if you look at how sourcing and procurement has evolved over the last few years, for the first few years, the focus was more in terms of, how do you manage the budget, right? There's a project budget. How do you meet up with that? How do you procure as per that? Slowly the focus, I think, shifted to cost transformation. How do you, really drive incremental savings and incremental value over the budget? And over the last few years, the focus has been more in terms of driving digital transformation, across organizations, but specifically within procurement, because that's where most of the costs reside. And clearly, I think if you are looking at digital transformation, you will not only achieve benchmark performance where you will do better than your peers, but you will achieve what we call as a quartile zero performance, which is achieving the art of the possible and achieving what digital can enable you to achieve in terms of strategic value, operational efficiency, but more importantly, also in terms of user experience. Now, while many companies have undertaken this journey, right, and based on a recent survey which we did of close to about 1350 senior executives globally, what came out was that while 95% of the organizations believed that digital transformation is going to fundamentally change the way their services are delivered, only 32% of these companies actually had the resources and the competencies to execute this strategy. And even the companies which have actually undertaken this journey, only 22% of these companies have achieved both digital and financial outcomes out of digital. That means they've really delivered improved financial performance by undertaking a digital transformation journey. So what we did was we studied what these 22% of the companies are doing differently, which have, enabled them to become winners, really achieve digital transformation while also delivering significant value out of digital. So clearly, I think five things are the key, differentiators, what these companies are doing. One, I think they are leveraging integrated platforms, and I'll talk more about this over the next few slides. Second, they are leveraging digital to take, data-driven decisions. Data-driven means not just using structured data, but structured and unstructured. And not just really looking at internal data, but internal and external data. So a combination of all these four data sources or types of data are being leveraged to drive value out of digital and data. Third, most importantly, they are investing in building talent in the new. In fact, this is the most important aspect out of the first two which I talked about, because a lot of companies look at digital as a technology implementation exercise, and they implement it and then there's low adoption and they're not getting value out of digital. So I think this is very, very critical. The fourth, they are closing the loop on spend management, and I'll explain what this means. And five, there is a relentless obsession with value creation. So you get what you measure. And if you are taking digital transformation for sake of digital transformation, while not being clear what is the value you're going to generate out of it, then you don't get the value which you aspire to achieve. So let me take you through all these five practices. First, I think if you are looking at a digital transformation journey, you need to move from point solutions or POCs to really looking at what we call as an integrated platform. An integrated platform which will provide touchless and lean operations, which will enable seamless collaboration, not just within your company across the functions, but even with outside stakeholders. Provide a superior user experience, and users here means both internal users within your function as well as your internal customer. Bring in transparency and drive governance around that transparency through clear-cut visibility and transparency and accountability across each of the processes. Embed analytics and process intelligence. And finally, a lot of companies are using a open and flexible architecture to build these platforms so that they can keep on adding the functionality, as they go. So when you are talking about an integrated platform, it has two parts. It has the core platform and there are edge solutions. The core platform includes, ERPs like SAP, which, take care of the transactions, the transactional layer. Then they may include e-sourcing tools like the Aribas and the Coupas or the iValuers, right? These are all core. But in our experience, these core solutions at best meet about 85% of your requirements. And only when you look at edge solutions and you combine these edge solutions with the core solutions, you get the full value of what we call as an integrated platform. And these edge solutions are solutions, specialized solutions, which are available in the market, or solutions which you may develop as internally custom developed, or you use a third party for that. Just as an example, not many people know Accenture is the largest procurement organization in the world, buying over $400 billion for its clients. And because we felt that these core solutions were not meeting our clients' requirements in terms of sourcing and P2P, we developed about 15 different capabilities or 15 different edge solutions, which we combined with the core platform to add value to our clients. And they may include the aspects of spend optimizer or a market intelligence tool helping you, get new suppliers, do using web crawling, or giving you what are the risks associated with your current suppliers, right? Or a category workbench or a commodity tracker or multiple other edge solutions which deliver what we call as the full value out of analytics. So that brings me to the next topic. These leaders are extending the value of analytics across all four quadrants of value creation. They are looking at a combination of structured data and unstructured, and internal and external data. Most companies start with internal and structured, and there itself, I think they have a challenge because their master data is not clean. And therefore, they say the spend and analytics is not giving me the value because my master data itself is not clean, right? But that's just the starting point. A spend analyzer or a spend optimization tool really helps with that. But if you move to the left side, how do you leverage external data which is structured? An example of that could be that you have these market indexes, right? And you link your cost models with the market indexes so that if there is any change in a commodity price, you get an alert based on your cost model, and therefore you are able to renegotiate with your suppliers or decide your sourcing strategy. That's an example of an external structured data. The example of an external unstructured data is really the tool which I was talking about, like the web crawling market intelligence tool, right? Which helps you identify new suppliers for niche categories in very, very different locations, or helps you identify what are the risks associated with your existing suppliers. Because it's not just a point of cost optimization, it's also a point of resilience. How do you mitigate the risks associated with your existing supply base, right? So it's really an example of using external unstructured data. An example of unstructured internal data could be your business plans, could be engineering drawings, everything which is existing in your organization, which can be leveraged to really influence or get insights into procurement planning. So that's really what we call as leveraging all four quadrants of data to get full value of analytics. And these 15 tools which I talked about were actually developed to take this power to the next level. The third key aspect, and I would say this is the most important, while you look at your digital transformation journey, the most important asset is your people. So because digital is creating requirements of new skills, new capabilities required to harness the full value, it's also creating new roles. And therefore, it is not man plus machine, but man and machine. And how do they work together to create value? Right? And there are multiple new roles which are required within the procurement organization or to support the procurement organizations, and new skills in terms of IoT, in terms of analytics, in terms of AI, which procurement function can harness to get value, right? And that is also creating new roles. Now these new roles could be a staff function outside the procurement organization, which services the procurement organization, or can be part of the procurement organization, so that the procurement leaders can get full value out of digital and analytics. And this is obviously changing also the roles and competencies required within the procurement function. Because it's again, as I said, it's man plus machine, right? And there are roles where the man element or the human element is critical, but there are a lot of transactional roles where the robots can all take over that transactional work. But even for the work which is more of category expertise or supplier relationship management, analytics and AI and RPA can add significant value. So really combining that and taking the full value out of digital and analytics becomes important. And if you have to do that, the focus has to be on how do you enhance the digital fluency in your organization, right? In fact, if you really talk about, moving organizations are going to move from, earlier Accenture said that every organization is a digital business. Our new view is that every organization is going to be a sustainable business. White sustainability talks about carbon emissions and everything else which you know of, but it's also about how do you enhance the capability of your people? How do you make them more market relevant? How do you upgrade your skills to the next level so that you can get the full value out of the digital transformation journey? Just to give you an example, today we are working with an organization in India where we are reskilling 4,500 of their people across the organization, across all functions, into digital and analytics, and building about 120 digital pioneers who are going to drive the transformation in the organization. And the digital pioneers, and it is through online courses, SME-led sessions, and action learning programs, because you learn finally by doing. So I think it's really that aspect which is so strategic for organizations today, and it is critical to move towards a sustainable, high-performing business. The fourth aspect is really how do you close the loop on spend management, right? Because as I said, once COVID hit, multiple organizations have, should I say, cut down on their discretionary expenses, right? Have really optimized their costs. But what's in their mind is, what is the right cost? What is the should cost, right, for the business? Because their concern is, as business starts picking up, these prices and these costs again are moving up. So the savings was not really sustainable, right? So if you want to get sustainable value, the key question is, what is the should cost? Rather than driving incremental cost optimization, what is the should cost for each and every cost package? Not just looking at price related levers, but price, consumption, specification, and digital levers to get full value out of savings and sustainable savings. But most importantly, locking the savings into the budget. Because many organizations, the procurement function says that I've saved $1 billion, and the CEO says, where is it in my P&L, right? The key thing is, how do you lock the savings into the budget into a granular fashion in terms of the price related savings, the consumption related savings at an item level, and monitor and control the budget so that it hits the P&L, right? But most importantly, how do you change the culture in the organization into what we call as an owner's mindset, right? Where people start looking at companies' money as if it's their own. And that is the thing which makes this whole aspect of closed loop spend management sustainable, and drive, competitiveness in the organization, which is more sustainable value. So these are the four things which the leaders are really doing differently to, drive value. And I think this is just an example of how this closed loop spend management is different, because earlier the focus was more on price and specs, focus was only on the procurement function. Then came a time where procurement and finance started working together, and you started doing budget integration and control and monitoring of the value. And the future is not just limiting yourself to price and specs, but looking at demand levers, digital levers, process optimization levers, and responsible levers, right? And in terms of sustainability and procurement, finance, and business working together to drive value, sustainable value in the organization. So I think just to bring all this to life, let me share with you a case example. Now, I think this case example is with a, with an oil and gas major. Now, they wanted to get full value from their digital journey. And their whole vision was, how do I get $1 billion of savings using digital and analytics alone, right? Traditional levers not accounted for. The savings has to come through digital and analytics, and it has to be over $1 billion. And $1 billion across the direct, indirect, capex, all spends, which is close to about 8%, of net savings. And while you do that, also transform the core processes, innovate in terms of new digital capabilities, but sustain the savings by enhancing the digital fluency in the organization, right? So this program was undertaken, over a 27-month period. It was 9 sprints of 3 months each, because obviously they wanted to get value every 3 months and not at the end, of the program itself. So as I mentioned, there were three pillars to this program. It was first value, over $1 billion, building digital capabilities and analytics capabilities, and most importantly, sustain them by enhancing the digital fluency in the organization and training the entire organization so that they start using digital and analytics to drive value in a sustainable manner. So these were the three pillars of the program. The program started with what we call as creating the North Star, right? While you're looking at the North Star is not just the $1 billion of saving, but what changes you are going to do in terms of your strategic direct procurement, in terms of your operational procurement, in terms of materials management and logistics, in terms of usage of data, and in terms of capability building of your people. And clearly a defined roadmap as to what are you going to achieve every 3 months. So what we call as a sprint plan, what digital and analytics assets and capabilities you are going to build, what kind of value you are going to get, and what kind of capability building are you going to do across the organization, across the three pillars, right? So while now coming to the whole question of platform, which I talked about earlier, this company had SAP. They selected a procurement backbone and they selected GEP. But the GP and the SAP were meeting only 70-80% of the requirements. So they built multiple digital accelerators and also used Accenture accelerators and connected that through APIs to get full value from their platform. And this is what they called as an integrated platform or a platform of platform. I'm happy to report the program has ended successfully, and against $1 billion of saving, the client has delivered $1.2 billion of savings. Large part of the saving has come through procurement. And for in procurement, they developed about 24 MVPs and took 9 different digital initiatives. But a lot of savings and quick wins actually came from materials management and logistics. But the most important aspect of this journey was, how do you transform the organization? They started off with a group procurement organization and a small team, a small digital procurement team. And the small was as big as 200 people, about 100 people from Accenture, and I think about 200 people from the client. So 300 people started off as a digital procurement team. But over a period of time, across the 9 sprints, they moved the entire organization from group procurement to digital group procurement, where everyone started using digital and analytics as a new way of working to get sustainable value, not just one time, but year on year. I think so that's what I call as true transformation in terms of digital value and capability and sustainability. So I think I'll just like to end my presentation. These are the 5 pillars: leverage integrated platforms, use full power of data across the 4 quadrants, invest and build talent and capability in the new, close the loop on spend management, and relentless obsession with value.